California was never meant to be seen standing still. This is a state that stretches 840 miles from border to border, a place where the highest peak in the lower 48 states rises just 85 miles from the lowest point in North America, where ancient trees older than the Roman Empire stand within a few hours' drive of the hottest place on Earth. And for over a century, people have come here chasing something: gold, fame, freedom, a new beginning. But the ones who truly found California were the ones who followed the roads. Roads blasted out of impossible cliffs during the Great Depression. Highways carved through mountain passes nearly 10,000 feet above sea level. Quiet two-lane roads that wind through ghost towns frozen in time. Researchers have documented over 60 scenic byways across the Golden State. Together, they generate billions of dollars for the communities they pass through. But more than economics, these roads tell the story of California itself. In this video, we are going to drive every one of California's most breathtaking routes, from the edge of the continent to the floor of the desert, from cathedral forests to hidden mountain highways that most tourists never find. Along the way, you will discover the convict laborers who built one of the world's most photographed bridges, the forgotten highway that took 27 years to finish, and the oldest living things on Earth, standing in silence on a road most people drive right past. This is California unfolded, and it begins where the land runs out. There is a stretch of road in California where the mountains fall directly into the sea. No buffer, no gradual slope, just granite, then air, then the Pacific Ocean 1,000 feet below. The Pacific Coast Highway, Highway 1. Whatever name travelers use, it remains one of the most iconic drives on the planet. But this road almost never existed. In the early 1900s, the Big Sur coastline was pure wilderness. The few families who lived there were cut off from the world every winter when mudslides destroyed the old inland trail. County officials once told a local landowner named Charles Bixby that no one would want to live there. They were wrong. In 1919, California approved construction of what would become Highway 1. Over the next 18 years, workers used more than 70,000 pounds of dynamite to blast through over 10 million cubic yards of granite, marble, and sandstone. The original budget of $1.5 million ballooned to $19 million by the time the road was finished. The most dramatic moment in that construction was the Bixby Creek Bridge, completed in 1932. During the depths of the Great Depression, it required 45,000 individual sacks of cement hauled up a narrow one-lane road full of hairpin turns. When no workers could be found willing to brave the dangerous clifftop conditions, the state brought in convict laborers from San Quentin prison who worked 2 to 3 shifts a day. The result was a 714-foot concrete arch rising 260 feet above the creek below. At the time, it was the tallest single-span arch bridge in the world. It cost just under $200,000. In 1965, the 72-mile section surrounding Bixby Bridge became the first road in California to receive an official scenic highway designation. First Lady, Lady Bird Johnson, led the dedication ceremony at the bridge itself. Today, travelers report that driving south is the way to experience this road. Heading north to south keeps you in the lane closest to the ocean, with nothing between you and the edge of the world. The Pacific Coast Highway clings to the edge of the continent, but California's next great drive climbs toward the sky, into a valley carved by glaciers and guarded by granite giants. Most visitors enter Yosemite National Park through the valley floor. They see the waterfalls and the granite walls, and they think they have seen everything. They haven't even come close. Cutting across the top of the park from Crane Flat to the eastern edge of the Sierra Nevada sits Tioga Road, just 60 miles long. But those 60 miles cross the highest highway pass in California, reaching 9,945 feet above sea level. The drive begins in Tuolumne Grove, where travelers walk among giant sequoias. These trees are not just tall, some are over 2,000 years old. They were already ancient when the Roman Empire was at its peak. As the road climbs higher, the landscape transforms. Dense forests give way to exposed granite. The air thins, and suddenly Tenaya Lake appears like a mirror dropped into the mountains. Its waters are so clear that on calm days the surrounding peaks reflect perfectly on the surface. Further along, Tuolumne Meadows opens up in what travelers describe as an explosion of color each spring. Wildflowers cover every inch of the alpine meadow. The short hike up Lembert Dome rewards anyone willing to climb with a panoramic view that stretches for miles in every direction. But the most surreal moment comes at the very end. After crossing beneath the shadow of Mount Dana at nearly 10,000 feet, the road descends sharply to Mono Lake. Here, bizarre calcium carbonate towers called tufa formations rise from the water like sculptures from another world. Researchers have determined these formations are over 13,000 years old, built up slowly over millennia as underwater springs interacted with the alkaline lake water. There is a catch though. Tioga Road is only accessible a few months each year. Heavy Sierra snowfall keeps it closed from roughly November through May. The mountain itself decides when visitors are welcome. Tioga Road reaches for the heavens, but our next drive descends into a world where summer temperatures can melt asphalt and the earth drops below sea level. There is a place in California where the thermometer has reached 134 degrees Fahrenheit, where annual rainfall measures less than 2 inches, where the ground sits 282 feet below sea level. Death Valley earned its name honestly, and yet, travelers who brave this landscape report one of the most visually stunning experiences of their lives. The Death Valley Scenic Byway cuts through a national park that covers over 3.4 million acres, making it the largest national park in the lower 48 states. The drive begins at Badwater Basin. Standing here, visitors are at the lowest point in all of North America. A small sign on the cliff above marks sea level, hundreds of feet overhead. The salt flat stretches for miles in every direction, cracked into geometric patterns that look designed by human hands, but were sculpted entirely by evaporation and time. A short drive north, Zabriskie Point offers one of the most photographed viewpoints in the American West. At sunrise, the eroded mudstone hills glow in shades of gold and amber. Geologists have documented that these formations are the remnants of an ancient lake that dried up 5 million years ago. Then there is the artist's palette, a hillside where oxidized metals have stained the rock in shades of green, purple, red, and yellow. Iron creates the reds. Decomposing mica produces the greens. It looks like a painting left out in the rain. At Mesquite Flat, sand dunes rise up to 100 feet high. In the early morning or late evening, when the light goes low and the shadows stretch long, this landscape could pass for the surface of Mars. In 2019 alone, national parks accessed via scenic byways like this one generated $4.3 billion in economic output for surrounding communities. Death Valley, despite its harsh reputation, draws nearly 1.7 million visitors each year. But experts warn clearly. This is not a drive to take unprepared. Vehicles break down, cell service vanishes, and the heat is not an inconvenience. It is a genuine danger. Death Valley strips the world down to its raw elements, but further north, California hides a very different kind of ancient world, one where living things have stood watch for thousands of years. Imagine driving through a cathedral, not one made of stone and glass, one made of living wood, with pillars that rise over 350 feet into the sky and have been standing for over 2,000 years. That is the Avenue of the Giants. This 31-mile corridor winds through Humboldt Redwoods State Park in Northern California, following the old highway that parallels the more modern Route 101. The park protects the largest remaining stand of old-growth coast redwoods on Earth. These are the tallest trees in existence. Not the widest, that title belongs to the giant sequoias further south, but coast redwoods reach heights that no other living thing has ever matched. The tallest known individual, named Hyperion, stands at 380 feet. For perspective, that is taller than the Statue of Liberty. Driving through this forest changes something in people. Travelers consistently report a feeling of calm that is hard to explain. The canopy is so thick that very little sunlight reaches the forest floor. Sound is absorbed by the wood and the ferns. The outside world simply disappears, but this forest almost disappeared too. By the mid-20th century, the logging industry had already cleared the vast majority of California's old-growth redwoods. Conservationists fought for decades to protect what remained. The creation of Redwood National and State Parks in 1968, followed by a major expansion in 1978, saved many of these groves. But the battle is not over. Researchers continue to monitor these ecosystems, which are sensitive to climate shifts and changes in fog patterns that the trees depend on for moisture. Just beyond the avenue, in Prairie Creek Redwood State Park, herds of Roosevelt elk graze in open meadows surrounded by ancient trees. And a short detour leads to the Lost Coast, one of California's most secluded and least visited stretches of shoreline. These ancient giants have watched civilizations rise and fall, but the next stretch of California Road tells the story of one of America's greatest human dramas, the gold rush that changed everything. On January 24, 1848, a carpenter named James Marshall spotted something shining in the American River at Sutter's Mill. Within months, word spread across the world, and within 2 years, over 300,000 people flooded into California, transforming it from a remote territory into the 31st state of the Union. Highway 49 follows their path. Named for the 49ers who made that journey, this 300-mile road traces the foothills of the Sierra Nevada through what is still called Gold Country. The towns along this route feel like living museums. Nevada City, one of the best preserved gold rush settlements, still has its original brick storefronts, gaslit streets and buildings that date to the 1850s. Further south, Grass Valley is home to the Empire Mine State Historic Park. At its peak, this was one of the richest gold mines in California, producing 5.8 million ounces of gold over its 106-year history. Visitors today can peer into the mine shaft that descends thousands of feet into the earth. But the most remarkable stop may be Columbia State Historic Park. This is not a reconstruction. It is the actual town, preserved almost exactly as it appeared in the 1850s. Wooden sidewalks, a working blacksmith shop, a stagecoach that still runs on schedule. Researchers and historians have worked for decades to maintain its authenticity. At Railtown 1897 in Jamestown, travelers can ride a genuine steam train through the Sierra foothills. This railroad has appeared in over 200 Hollywood productions, from High Noon to Back to the Future Part 3. The drive ends beautifully. As Highway 49 approaches its southern terminus, the landscape opens up and the granite walls of Yosemite National Park appear on the horizon. The gold rush built California's identity. But the state's soul lives along a different stretch of road, one that winds through vineyards where patience, not speed, is the currency. California produces over 80% of all wine made in the United States, but for most of its history, the world did not take California wine seriously. That changed in a single afternoon. On May 24, 1976, a British wine merchant organized a blind tasting in Paris. French judges compared top French wines against unknown bottles from California. When the results were revealed, the California wines had won in both the red and white categories. The French judges were stunned. The event, now known as the Judgment of Paris, transformed the global wine industry overnight. The 450-mile drive from Ojai to Napa Valley follows the path of that revolution. It begins in Ojai, a bohemian enclave north of Los Angeles, known for its artistic community and mountain-framed sunsets. The town is home to Bart's Books, one of the largest outdoor bookstores in the world. Heading north along the coast, the route passes through Santa Barbara, often called the American Riviera, for its Mediterranean climate and Spanish colonial architecture. This city has quietly become one of California's most respected wine regions. Sonoma offers something Napa often does not: a slower pace, smaller crowds, winery experiences that feel personal rather than commercial. Scribe Winery, housed in a historic hacienda surrounded by gardens, has become a favorite among travelers looking for something beyond the typical tasting room. Then comes Napa. Over 400 wineries line this valley, ranging from legendary estates to tiny family operations producing just a few hundred cases a year. The farm-to-table dining movement was essentially born here, and Michelin-starred restaurants sit alongside roadside fruit stands, selling the morning's harvest. The beauty of wine country is not just what you taste, it is what you see from behind the wheel: rolling golden hills, morning fog burning off as the sun rises, vineyards that glow amber in the late afternoon light. Wine country intoxicates the senses, but Southern California calls with a coastline where the sun never seems to set, and every beach town has a story to tell. The drive begins in San Diego. The Gaslamp Quarter hums with energy, but the real gems lie just outside the city center. La Jolla's sea caves attract kayakers and snorkelers, while Balboa Park, with its Spanish colonial buildings, houses over a dozen museums and one of the world's most celebrated zoos. Laguna Beach sits on dramatic cliffs that have attracted artists since the early 1900s. The town is home to over 100 art galleries, and every summer it hosts the Pageant of the Masters, a live show where volunteers recreate famous paintings using real people. It has run for over 90 years. Further up the coast, Santa Monica marks the official western terminus of Route 66. The famous pier, built in 1909, is where the Mother Road meets the Pacific Ocean. Travelers who have driven all the way from Chicago end their journey here, standing at the edge of the continent. Malibu stretches for 27 miles along the coast. Beyond the celebrity reputation, this stretch of shoreline holds some of the most powerful surf breaks in Southern California. Zuma Beach, wide and uncrowded compared to its neighbors, is a local favorite. Drive ends in Santa Barbara. The red tile roofs and white stucco walls reflect the city's Spanish colonial heritage. The historic mission, founded in 1786, still operates today, and the Funk Zone, a converted warehouse district near the waterfront, has become a center for wine tasting, craft breweries, and public art. Just offshore, the Channel Islands are visible on clear days. Often called California's Galapagos, these islands support species found nowhere else on Earth. In 1919, California funded a highway with a single ambitious goal: to build the most scenic and picturesque mountain road in the state. It took 27 years to finish. The Angeles Crest Highway, also known as Highway 2, stretches 66 miles along the craggy spine of the San Gabriel Mountains. It begins in La Cañada Flintridge, just north of Los Angeles, and climbs to over 7,000 feet before descending to Wrightwood on the other side. Every curve reveals something new. To the south, the vast sprawl of Los Angeles stretches to the horizon. To the north, the Mojave Desert shimmers in the distance. Between them, nothing but pine forests, exposed granite, and silence. Partway along the route sits the Mount Wilson Observatory. This is where, in 1929, astronomer Edwin Hubble made one of the greatest discoveries in human history. Using the observatory's 100-inch telescope, he proved that the universe was not static but expanding. That single observation changed our understanding of the cosmos forever. The highway also provides access to dozens of trailheads and picnic areas tucked into the mountains. Switzer Falls, a cascading waterfall hidden in a forested canyon, is reachable by a moderate hike that feels worlds away from the city below. And then there is the weather. In winter, snow blankets the upper elevations. Travelers drive from the warm basin of Los Angeles into a genuine winter landscape in under an hour. Wrightwood, the small mountain town at the highway's eastern end, operates a ski resort that draws visitors from across Southern California. The fact that this wilderness exists within an hour of one of the world's largest cities is something that surprises nearly everyone who discovers it. Angeles Crest proves that California always has another layer to reveal, and our next drive takes us to the state's eastern edge, where the oldest living things on Earth have been standing in silence for nearly 5,000 years. Ask most visitors about California and they will mention the beaches, the cities, the redwoods. Very few will mention the road that runs along the eastern side of the Sierra Nevada. Highway 395 is the drive that California keeps to itself. The journey begins at Lake Tahoe, a body of water so clear that objects are visible nearly 70 feet below the surface. Straddling the California-Nevada border at over 6,200 feet in elevation, it is the largest alpine lake in North America. Scientists have determined the lake is roughly 2 million years old. Heading south, the road passes Bodie, one of America's best preserved ghost towns. In 1879, Bodie was a booming gold mining town of nearly 10,000 people, complete with over 60 saloons. By the early 1900s, it was abandoned. Today, the remaining buildings stand in a state of arrested decay. Nothing is restored. Nothing is rebuilt. The town looks exactly as it did the day the last person walked away. Mammoth Lakes offers a different kind of geological wonder. Natural hot springs bubble up through the earth, heated by volcanic activity that geologists remind us is far from dormant. Devil's Postpile National Monument, a wall of symmetrical basalt columns formed by cooling lava, stands nearby as proof. Further south, the Alabama Hills present a landscape of weathered boulders and arches that have served as a backdrop for hundreds of Hollywood films since the 1920s. Westerns, science fiction movies, and television shows have all used these formations to stand in for alien planets and frontier landscapes. Mount Whitney, the highest peak in the contiguous United States at 14,505 feet, towers directly behind them. But the most extraordinary stop on Highway 395 requires a short detour into the White Mountains. Here, in the ancient bristlecone pine forest, trees have been standing for nearly 5,000 years. Scientists have identified one individual, named Methuselah, as roughly 4,855 years old. It was already ancient when the Egyptian pyramids were being built. Its exact location is kept secret to protect it. Highway 395 reveals the California that exists beyond the postcards, but our final drive returns to the coast, where a quiet peninsula holds what many call the crown jewel of all California state parks. Some drives are measured in hundreds of miles. This one covers just 30, and travelers who have driven every route in California often say this short loop is the one that stays with them the longest. The Monterey Peninsula. It begins at Moss Landing, where the Elkhorn Slough wetland hosts one of the largest populations of southern sea otters in California. Researchers have documented that otters here use tools, cracking open shellfish with rocks balanced on their chests while floating on their backs. Coastal birds wade through the shallows. Harbor seals rest on the sand. Further along, the city of Monterey carries layers of history. Cannery Row, once the center of a sardine canning industry that collapsed in the 1950s, was immortalized by novelist John Steinbeck in his 1945 book of the same name. The former canneries have been transformed into shops and restaurants, and the Monterey Bay Aquarium, built inside an old cannery building, is now one of the most respected marine research institutions in the world. Old Fisherman's Wharf has served the local fishing community for over a century. The clam chowder served here is considered by food writers to be among the best in the state. Then comes the legendary 17-mile drive through Pebble Beach. This private toll road winds through coastal cypress groves, past world-famous golf courses, and along rocky shorelines where the Pacific crashes against granite. The lone cypress, clinging to a rocky outcrop above the water, has been called the most photographed tree in North America. The loop ends in Carmel by the sea. This tiny village has no street addresses, no parking meters, and no chain restaurants. Residents once elected actor Clint Eastwood as their mayor. The town has more art galleries per capita than almost anywhere in the country, and its white sand beach, framed by Monterey cypress trees, looks like it belongs on a Mediterranean island. Just south of Carmel, Point Lobos State Natural Reserve is often called the crown jewel of California's state parks. Dramatic coves, tidal pools teeming with life, and coastal trails that reveal something new with every visit. Marine biologists have documented an extraordinary concentration of biodiversity in these waters. "30 miles, and somehow everything California represents is here. Nature, culture, history, beauty, all compressed into one unforgettable loop." California stretches across nearly 164,000 square miles. It contains the tallest trees, the lowest valley, the oldest living organisms on the planet, mountains that touch the sky and deserts that fall below the sea. But none of that means anything from a single fixed point. California was designed to unfold, to reveal itself mile by mile, turn by turn. Every road in this video carries a story that most maps will never tell. A bridge built by convict laborers that became a symbol of beauty. A highway that took nearly 2 decades and $19 million to carve out of solid rock. Ghost towns where the silence holds more history than most museums. Trees that were already old when humans first learned to write. The Golden State does not hand you its secrets. It makes you drive for them. It asks you to follow the road a little further, around one more bend, over one more pass. And every time, it gives you something you did not expect. California unfolded.